Hey everybody, I'm back. Are you excited I'm here?
I am so glad you're here. Honestly, doing life ministry with you, like I just love it. So I'm excited.
I was thinking about today. I was just like, we're such a good match. Like in life in general, we're good partners.
We are good partners.
We are. But I did want to let you guys know that, tonight I do look like what I've been through, and I've been through a lot in the last month. We have been through a lot.
We have
in the last month, and for those who know, thank you guys for your prayers, your concern. It doesn't. We don't go without thinking about it on a daily basis. So we just want to say we appreciate everybody for that and for supporting us through this time. Before we get into the banter, do you know what we're talking about today?
I'm excited for you to introduce it.
Okay.
Yes.
So we know dating is ghetto. We hear about it. We don't know it. We hear that
we've been hearing about it. Yeah.
Unfortunately or fortunately, we don't have that story. But today we actually wanted to talk about how another type of ghetto, which is the first year of marriage, and how the first year of marriage can indeed be ghetto.
Yeah, it's pretty ghetto.
Well. It's pretty ghetto, actually.
Yeah, and funny enough, when we first started our journey, people will always say like, hey, be mindful of the first year. And I think in the first year, there were like a lot of celebrities who actually wedded during our time, or the year of when we wedded. And then our first year, we were hearing like people were so many divorces and different things like that. And so, yeah, the first year is ghetto. It can be ghetto. It can be ghetto.
I know, but we actually are like slicing it a little bit, because funny enough, our first year wasn't ghetto.
So no. I said the emphasis, we're not slicing it. It can be ghetto.
It can be ghetto.
Yes. It gets really rough for us, or it gets rough for people in general. But for us, it wasn't ghetto. In fact, I remember during premarital, they were like, hey, the first year, you make sure you lock in. And then as the first year was going by, people were asking me like, so how's the first year? And the word I kept saying was, this is fun. It felt like...
it was very fun.
Yeah, it felt like I was just having a really extended sleepover. Like, that's what it really felt like. It felt like an extended sleepover. It felt like I'm with a college roommate.
It felt like we were playing house.
Like growing up when you play house with.
It felt like we were playing house.
Yeah, it very much felt like that. It felt fun. I in many ways I kind of missed the first year.
Yeah, honestly, it was that second year that was ghetto.
The second
year was ghetto for us for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, the second year is where the second year was just like, wait, this ain't fun anymore.
No, legit. It was like, okay, this is not vacation. This is not playing house. This is real. And it was like, oh, we're legally married,
right?
Spiritually married, all of the things. Oh, it's final. Yeah. No, it was real.
It felt like that in many ways. It was like it's sort of like when you get the interview, or you have an interview, you take it, and then you're like, oh my gosh, this is the best place ever. Like this is amazing. And then like after 2 months, you're like, hold up, did they just gaslight me?
Yeah.
But
before you get too deep into that,
word trickaroo.
I've never used that word. That's
never.
Trickaroo? No, babe.
Is that like an old person?
Yes.
Oh man,
that is an old trickaroo. It's crazy. I've never used that word before. Never used that phrase. It's not even a word.
Such a trickaroo.
No. Okay. Yeah, let's not do that.
All right.
But yeah, before we talk about marriage, tell us about dating. Was dating ghetto for you?
Yeah, so I know you introduced it. You definitely talked about how like being outside, we have heard. I mean, ever since being young adult pastors, we've been hearing how like it has been, and it is ghetto.
They said there's pee in the dating pool.
Yeah. Oh, is that what they do? Yeah, there's pee in the dating pool. And that's hilarious, but I guess that's real, because here's why. We started, first of all, so a little bit about us is I pursued you,
of course,
and that was 8 years ago. So that was 20.
You were pursuing me for like a year though.
So what would you
That
define?
was 2015,
So
the start
okay,
of it
yeah,
all.
it started 2015. That's when
Yeah,
I was throwing out. See, there's a lot of terms. Let's just talk about it. This isn't
yeah,
on
yeah,
the,
yeah.
but there is a lot of terms that 8 years ago, which by the way is almost a decade. It's not to say that we're old or anything, trickaroo, but it is to say,
Babe.
this is almost a decade. So we're coming from almost a decade worth of dating pool. I'm sure the pool done changed locations.
It's
They
deeper
put It's
now.
deeper
They
now.
using different
They put
chemicals.
guardrails in it. They
No,
probably
honestly, we weren't even in the dating pool. We were
right,
in the kiddie pool. We didn't. Go ahead.
right. It was so sophisticated. To your point, is we didn't. Did you hear how I introduced it? I said I pursued you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like nobody says that anymore. Like dating wasn't
Nah,
even
they
an
still say
option.
that.
Oh, they do say
They still
that?
say that.
Okay. Well, good.
Like
But
men have said to
I
like,
have not heard any of recent men say, "Yeah, I pursued her." But if that's a thing, cool. But one thing for
mm,
sure was not a thing. Date the word dating.
okay, no,
We did
we
not
have
say
to,
dating, or
but we
even
have to be specific of our community
yeah,
because
of course. This is
back
our
then,
context.
in our context, dating wasn't
Uh,
really a thing.
no,
No.
dating was a
But what do you
thing.
define as dating
Dating
first?
was a thing. Dating was a sin. All right,
Was
that
perceived as.
yeah, it was
We
perceived.
came up in the height of
Right?
purity culture.
So she's obviously, you can tell she's trying to be PC when it's like, cut it, give it to me straight, man. She's like, yeah, it can be perceived. No, 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 no. Listen, if you were dating 8 years ago in our culture, it was like, and when I say culture, I just really mean community. In our community, it
Yeah.
was like, you are unserious. You're not walking with the Lord. You don't really know Jesus, and you need to get your life together. Dating? Oh no, that wasn't a thing. 8 years ago, it was you need to hear God and you need to sit down and know that you know that you know
Uh-huh.
that that's the person, and then you pursue. And it's not even like that's the person that I'm interested in. It's that's
No,
the
that's the person
person
I'm going to marry.
you're gonna marry. Okay,
And then when you pursue them,
right?
you're not pursuing them to date them. You're
Yes,
pursuing them to court them
yes.
onto marriage.
Now, yes, yeah, I know. And then more to the point
That
on
sounds
that,
so intense.
more to the point on that is like you need to know before you even say a word to that individual that this is your wife, and not only that, but you need to wait 2 years before you actually marry. So I would say again, the whole for me, I feel like pursuing that word is probably a little bit archaic. Now people are saying, or now people are dating. So that to me is a entirely new thing.
Foreign concept, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing though. It's not a bad thing. I think in many ways it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like when people come and talk to us about like, hey, I'm damn like great. You know, I think that that's good. I wish we had the latitude and the flexibility of our community during that time to do that.
Why? You wanted to date?
Nah, nah, not at all. Nah, not at all. I just think we would have gotten
Okay.
to know each other a little bit better.
Okay, so
The second year wouldn't have been
oh
as
my
ghetto.
gosh. Okay. So let me
I'm
just
trying to get to my
clarify
third
his story.
point.
Okay,
Oh
go
my
ahead.
gosh. Go ahead, clarify what you want to clarify, Miss PC.
Okay, I'm just trying to follow the through line here. So when Sam approached me
She is
back
so
then, he was
pressed.
approaching me onto marriage. So when we started going out on dates, it was already with the premise of courtship.
Correct.
So we did date in the sense of going out places, but we were already kind of like official before that. But we kind of also still had like a talking phase where we were just like getting to know each other.
No, that talking phase was after May when I was like, hey.
No. Before that, when you would like come and visit me, and stuff,
So
I would consider that talking phase.
so that's the thing though. Well, we need to work out our issues now. No, I'm just kidding. But sure, if that's sure. All right, so whatever. So number one, again, the word pursuit, I just feel like a lot of people don't say that anymore. But if they say it, you know, cool. I haven't heard it in a while. Also, again, dating, that concept of, hey, I'm talking to you to explore the idea of courtship. That is a foreign concept to our 8 year, when we started 8 years ago. And then the other one that I was going to mention too, this is an interesting one, social media. 8 years ago, the way social media was used is not how it's currently being used. Now, we obviously, this is going to sound, I don't hope it doesn't come across like, oh, you're trying to be older than you are. No, 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 no. We still wild, young, and free, right? But the way social media was used before is a lot different than how it's being used now. So, for example, like 8 years ago, when at least maybe the people I followed 8 years ago, social media was more of like, hey, here's the brunch menu, or here's the brunch spread. Here is, maybe, stuff here and there. Like, but it wasn't really used how it is now, where now it's like, this is my life. And it was, now it's super vulnerable, super transparent on social media, whereas before it was not as that, it wasn't as vulnerable. So that is a new thing for me, and I think that that would have been a game changer if social media was used, if social media, how it's being currently used, if it were used when we were dating. I think that would have been a game changer for sure.
Because you're saying you would have scoped me out on social media.
Exactly. So now, like, now people have the opportunity to really get to know people because they're scoping them out, or they can do their investigation. Whereas 8 years ago, people were very mysterious about their
Yeah, I
social
was like
media.
a deactivate queen. I would deactivate my Instagram every 30 days
Yeah, and it wasn't like you were.
back then.
It wasn't like people were intentionally trying to be mysterious. It was just like
like-
we didn't know what to post. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm posting. Like, it was just so different. Like, it's so different. In fact, if you don't believe me, go look at your posts 8 years ago and see the drastic difference, right? It wasn't that the quality of picture was bad. It wasn't that filters improved. It's just simply that the engagement on social media is so different. So I think those three things I would definitely say is very, very different. And I'm curious to know how we would hold up under this environment. Just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thankful that we don't have to go through that.
Very grateful.
But we definitely empathize with our friends. Like, we are even taking it serious on their behalf.
Yes.
Trying to think of ways to, like, overcome the obstacles that exist within the dating pool. So
Yeah.
we definitely empathize. If we had our own, if we had the power to change everyone's circumstance in our lives that we love, we would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, now I am doing interview galore. Like, when I hear people's stories, like, I've heard of good stories of people who are on dating apps and it went well. People who find people in the community. Like, back again, like I said, because social media wasn't as prominent,
Dating apps weren't a thing back
dating
then.
apps were not a thing. And if they were a thing, I'm not saying that they didn't exist. Let's be clear about it. I'm not saying that they didn't exist. We can probably look up if they were.
Maybe, I don't know.
Not only did they were, so we don't know if whether or not they exist. Didn't do the research on that, but they weren't that popular, and they were stigmatized in our community, right? Like you getting married
To
to someone from social media just sounded, or from a dating app, it sounded so sacrilegious. It sounded so just
secular.
It sounded so
Carnal.
like you are so pressed to get married, and now it is so different. Like, now again, people encourage, and I'm just hearing so many. In fact, you should probably put it in the chat. I'm curious to know your thoughts. You should probably put it in the chat. Hey, what are your thoughts on online dating? I am so curious. It's like I'm fascinated about the phenomena in general. So put it in the chat. Let me know your thoughts for real. What are your thoughts on online dating? Should we do a whole video on online dating? I think that would be interesting. But yeah, I'm like gathering as much information to try and help people who are single in this, in this time frame, because it is so, I think it's a lot harder personally. I just think it's a lot harder to, you know how they say secure the bag? That's probably old, right? But you know how they say secure the bag? To secure the person, yeah, I feel like it's a little bit more harder, because now your life is just a spectacle. So
yeah. So jumping into the topic today, before we even get into like the first year of marriage, how do you feel like the preparation like was before, like preparing to get into marriage? How do you think that was
for us? Or
yeah, for us in general?
First of all, did I ask you how your
It's okay. No. Let's jump into it.
I was just so passionate about the difference. How about you answer it first, and then I'll come back.
About what? Answer what
The
exactly?
preparation leading up to marriage. What you just asked me.
Oh, okay. I mean, generally, preparing for marriage, I really went into it with a level of seriousness. So
Yeah.
we were engaged for a year.
Courted for a year.
Engaged for a year. During our courtship, I don't know if we necessarily did anything to prepare because it's a little bit taboo to prepare in that time. Because people are like, okay, you say you're getting married. Are you sure? So, that first year is really just like getting to know each other more on a more intimate level. That second year where we were engaged is when we really started the preparation. So we started with like, premarital counseling, things like that. And I was actually really happy to do that because I noticed a trend, with the generation before us. We are Nigerian American. So we are first Nigerian whatever. We're the first ones here in America. So I noticed that a lot of our parents kind of found themselves in marriage. They weren't really they didn't do the whole premarital counseling engagement.
Right.
A lot of them had a baby, got married, or a lot of them were in different circumstances, and then it resulted in marriage. And I noticed that left a lot of our parents, that generation, very unprepared. So I did go into it with the level of I'm so lucky to get to prepare beforehand. I remember feeling that. So we did a lot of premarital counseling, man. We did five different premarital counselings, bro.
It wasn't because we were crazy. That sounds crazy. I really don't like when you don't put context to it, because to say we did 5 premarital sounds like, dang.
Nah, bro, it was like that because...
Are you sure you should move forward?
It was like that because we were part of a lot of different organizations. Yes. Growing up, or just being in a Christian, we were in a lot of Christian communities.
Yeah.
Sam had a church. I had a church. We had a joint ministry that we were a part of. And then on top of that,
I had a family pastor.
I had a family pastor.
And I wanted outside, no influence.
And then we had also mentors that were starting an engagement ministry that we could be a part of. So that was also there were a lot of opportunities for preparation. Man, we read so many books.
Yes, so many. And it's funny because for me, preparation for me looks like, in general, whenever I'm starting something, the first thing I'm doing is grabbing a book on the topic or looking up videos about that specific thing.
Yeah, because on top of the premarital counseling that we did, Sam had us reading books.
Those were books that I already read.
Bro, I was like,
I vetted this. This is good. We're going to read this together.
That was the Francis Chan one.
We read Francis Chan. I forgot the name of it, but it was
we read Alistair Begg.
We read we read that book?
Crazy Love, Danny Silk.
We read we read The Meaning of Marriage. Was that what is, or is that? So we definitely read the Francis
Keep Your
Chan
Love
book.
On.
We read Alistair Begg's book. We read Danny Silk. We read Keeping Your Love On.
We read Heather Lindsay and Cornelius Lindsay's book too.
And by the way, we just read these. We read things that were just availed to us.
Bro,
so we're not. I don't like that she's name dropping, but it's not. These name drops are not recommendations at all, by no stretch of the mean. I'm not saying they're good. I'm not saying they're bad. She's just not being cognizant of the fact that there's a possibility that one day the Lord will bless us. But anyway, that's here nor there. I'm joking. But we read about 6 or 7 books. That was individually.
And then our premarital.
Then we had a premarital, and then we had 5 premarital premarital sessions going on with different people, and they all had their own book for us to read. Mm-hmm. So we were book nerds. We done a lot in our marriage. We done a lot in our courtship. I think you said leading up to marriage or leading up to courtship? Just
leading up to marriage.
Leading up to marriage. So I will say we were very intentional about our courtship, which I genuinely appreciated. I was intense, but I think it was for good reason. Now we can talk about the intensity, but one of the things that we did, which was really nice, was that we came into it with a level of we knew that we worked together well as a team, and so we wanted to continue that on. So one of the things we did was we did Bible studies together, actual Bible studies. We would prepare a lesson, prepare a talk.
Not Bible study and chill.
Right.
It was actually real Bible study.
It was like not like a Bible, yeah, not one of those like,
come
I'm
Bible
gonna
study
pray
on
and
my
cuddle.
bed.
Yeah, not one of those. I ain't nothing wrong with that. Thank Jesus for it, especially now. But it wasn't. It was more of like an intense, like, hey, we're gonna worship, play guitar, couldn't sing, but did it anyways. Put up all of the scriptures on the TV. She did it at my mom's house.
He was so serious.
Like,
I had to get there on Saturday morning on time.
Hilarious. Yeah, on time. We weren't playing. So we did that. We did devotionals. We fasted. We fasted for, geez Louise, was it 21 days or was it 40? I can't even remember, but we fasted. I had like I still have it to this day. We had like a Google Calendar, or Google Word. They have a calendar template. I'll put all the scriptures and the devotions in there that I craft. Like, I was like, look, y'all, too many marriages have failed. I'm going in with intensity and with I was so intense. Let's just talk about it.
No, he was.
I was so intense that I was like, okay, this is my mindset. If you're a fella and you're watching this, please don't leave me alone, because there are a lot of women who are going to be in the chat or supporting Lou, but I need my fellas to come behind me and rally. Okay, let me know if this makes sense. I think it makes sense, right? But I remember that in my mind, we read a book called 5 Love Languages. You already know. I shouldn't even say by Gary Chapman. That I do recommend. That's a book that I do recommend. So Gary Chapman, 5 Love Languages. And one of the love languages is quality time. So in my mind, I was thinking this. Y'all let me know if this is crazy. I was in my mind thinking like, okay, if Lou and I are trying to get married.
Look how he's setting it up. He's setting it up so you are on his side.
If Lou and I are trying to get married, right? We're going to face some arguments. We're going to face some disagreements while we're courting. So instead of whenever we get into an argument, we just go our separate ways, like go to our home. How about we actually have to see each other and work it out? In fact, honestly, that was layer number 1. Layer number 2, honestly, the big axe was, and she was annoyed. The big axe was we lived about 10 minutes away. And I was like,
10 minutes away from each other.
Yeah, 10 minutes away from each other. Her parents lived in 10 minutes away from my parents. Cool, right? So I said to myself, I said, hey, I feel weird. That's why I'm rambling.
Exactly.
I said, hey, maybe we should see each other every single day so that we can put ourselves in the mindset of not hiding from each other during hard moments, during annoyance, and during difficulty.
From the day of courtship,
which was
to the day of marriage,
which is 2 years.
Sam's
is that crazy?
For us to see each other every day.
I feel so weird. Is that crazy? I don't think that's crazy. I think that makes sense. My mindset is I need to put myself in a scenario before I get there so I know what to expect. So we experimented on it, and
not experimented.
I don't recommend that to anybody at all, by no stretch of the means. But that's how intense I was about trying to get it right, man. Because marriage is a beast. Marriage is a monster. Our mentors, one of our mentors, said it this way, and I really like it: is that marriage is brutal on selfishness. And I have come to realize the reality of that. So anyways, all that to say, absolutely 100%. Like, I was like giving it my all. I wasn't playing with it.
So would you say on the day we got married, when we were at the altar, did you feel prepared? Did you feel like you knew what you were getting into?
Yeah, it's so funny that you asked that question, because my thoughts have evolved on the matter. Coming into it, I thought that you can absolutely be prepared for marriage. Being married now 6 years this year, by the grace of God, I realized that you can be prepared for a marriage, but not be prepared for the marriage.
Yeah.
All right.
That's real.
So I didn't realize that, and no one had told me that. This is worth your salt. I wish we would have just started off with this so you have it up front. Maybe we clip it. I don't know, but that's so important. Like, I prepared for a marriage, but I did not prepare for the marriage. And that's a big difference because with premarital counseling, with all the 7 books that we read, and I didn't even talk about all the sermons that I listened to, and all the advice that I tried to gather, it gave me a good framework and it set my expectations and my desires for what a godly marriage should look like. However, it did not factor in the life that we then had to model out with each other. And that's a world of a difference. Because it's one thing to have knowledge, and it's another thing to have gnosko, which is an intimate knowledge. I'm sorry. Hey, my bad.
I told him don't be doing that on this podcast.
That's not what we're trying to do here. But there's one thing to say I know of Lou, and there's another thing to say I intimately know her. You know, the Bible says that, and like, for example, Jacob, or was it Isaac? Isaac knew Rebecca,
yes,
right? After they had, intercourse, whatever, right? Intimacy, right? So what I'm saying is that, or to answer your questions, like when I got to the altar, obviously during my mind 6 years ago, I'm like, yeah, like I'm ready to be a godly husband. I was confident in that. That is what got me to the altar. But what is sustaining me after the altar is me now shifting and saying, I am ready to be a husband to Lou. Big difference.
Yeah, but let me ask you, do you think, because the way you're saying it is as though like there was a insufficiency in the way that you prepared, but you're more so saying that it wasn't even possible to be prepared to be in a marriage until you're in the marriage. Yeah, what you're saying. It's not like you could have prepared or did something different.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that I get what you're saying. I'm not necessarily alluding to the fact that it was insufficient, my preparation, that is. I would just say that it was incomplete, meaning that there was an aspect of preparation that I wasn't really focused on. I was focused on me trying to get it right, rather than focusing on you and being a student of you. See, there's a big difference. And I think that, when we, counsel people now, that's my vantage point. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's great. You want to learn that communication is most important. You want to learn that your finances are supposed to ought to be together. You want to know that, and I'm not trivializing it.
Yeah.
But it is trivial in light of actually getting to know the mindset, the deepest fears, the wiring, the what brings excitement to the part. That's a completely different thing, because at the end of the day, you're not signing up to do or to play marriage. You're signing up to do life with an individual. That's what marriage is. It's not marriage at its brass tacks for me is I'm signing up to do life with another person. Yeah. And I cannot detach from that person. And so when I think about that, it changed the game for me. It created a level of, okay, I need to become a student of Lou. I need to know what Lou loves. I need to know what she does not prefer. I need to know the kind of people she likes to hang around and the kind of people that she's repulsed by. Because if I'm carrying those traits, I'm going to create a hellish of a marriage, and it's not going to be pleasant. But if I know what pleases her, I can then kind of, begin to shift and change and adapt. Not necessarily change who I am, but more so adapt to, and curtail and kind of, morph into a person that would be a suitable helpmate. The Bible says that's where suitability comes from, right? Like to be suitable in that regards. And so I think that was all it. The second year of our marriage is where I had to learn that, all right, I was prepared for a marriage, but I wasn't prepared for the marriage.
Yeah, and honestly, for me at the altar, so I was so nervous my wedding day. I knew the gravity.
Girl, you were nervous knowing the proposal. But
I'm a nervous girl. I just be nervous. I actually did not sleep the night before my wedding because I was so nervous. I did not eat anything. I threw up a couple of times. Like, that's how nervous I was. And it wasn't because I was nervous or had any like red flags about him. It was just that it all hit me, the weight of what I was doing.
Yeah, the
Like the
responsibility of it.
responsibility. So
Yeah.
at the altar, I felt well prepared cerebrally, if
Yes,
that
that's
makes
a good.
sense.
Yeah, that's a good way.
But
of
like
putting
Sam said, I was very ill prepared. And how it showed up for me in the actual marriage is that I oftentimes, when we would get into an argument or a disagreement, Sam would be like, "Remember your vows." And I was like, "Oh, those were serious." And I know that sounds crazy.
No, that's
That
real.
sounds
No,
crazy.
honestly, it's real. No, it's real though.
But
It's
he
real.
was like,
It's real.
you need to pull up your vows and read them. And I was like, wait, that's a lot. But it's actually real. And
No,
I
it's real.
realized,
It's real.
that's when I realized, like, girl, you are playing.
Yeah.
Like, you are here for play.
Yeah.
So I
that's real.
realized that at the altar, I was like, what did I just do? You know, but it was for good reason. And then going into it, I was like, okay, Lou, you need to get your mind right. And I really do thank God for sustaining us. I do credit it to like us having certain characteristics, and I don't take it for granted. I also pray God continues to sustain us. We are not naive to the devices of the enemy.
It's not like we've arrived.
Not at all.
And that's why I'm really slow on doing these kinds of talks, because it's like we have not arrived yet at all by no stretch of me. And I know a lot of people kind of posture as that. But yeah, for us, it's like we're really just trying to help people with our story and our journey. And we're going to share right now just a couple of things that we believe is helpful, knowing that, okay, especially if you're in the first year of marriage or if you're getting ready to marry, honestly, it can serve you in both dynamics, because this is information on how to prepare to do life with another person, rather than like, what are the 6 ingredients to be a godly spouse? I think that's great. And I think you ought to lean into it. But I think what happens is that life has the power, as you know, on a personal level, to kind of cripple your faith, right? And so if we are just going to lean into spirituality so much to the point where we're ignorant of the power that life can the influence that it has on a marriage, then you're playing games, like what you're saying. So
before we get into the points, could you give us a brief synopsis of why the second year of marriage was ghetto? Why was it ghetto?
Yeah, for that reason, it was ghetto because life happened. Life happened from a family of origin perspective, where the family of origin where we came out of was just questionable and very shaky. And sure, again, there's the scripture says leave and cleave, but the reality is, and that is the reality. But in addition to leaving and cleaving is a process, and it doesn't end on the altar. A lot of times we think that leaving and cleaving ends when we say I do. No, there are real heart connections there. There are real memories. There are real, like, for example, I'll just tell on myself. The first year of marriage, Lou will clown me I have a really solid best friendship with my dad. In the first year of marriage, I honestly was calling my... All right. Okay. Okay.
I'm joking.
If we had the edits, we could have made that like so hilarious. But okay. Yeah, whatever. But I have a really good relationship with my dad. And
imagine a wife just seeing your husband call
every
his dad
decision. Hey, Dad, what's your thoughts on this? And he gladly, like, hey, he was eating it up, right? Because he's a father wanting to walk his son through the first year of marriage. But that boundary was not there, right? And that leaving and cleaving was not there. And so to your question, like, your family of origin played a big part in our second year of marriage, where things just started blowing up, and it was just so hard to manage. And that played a big part. COVID played a big part.
Yeah, so that wasn't second year going into the third year. Yeah. COVID played a really big part.
That was a big
in
part.
Our marriage as well. And then from my perspective, we were still trying to figure out how to like marry our lives together.
Yes.
We are very much a together couple. We do things together. But there was an area. No, we always were.
Okay, we always.
But there was an area in our lives, which specifically our friendships, our community, that we were having difficulty with, like just
Yes, we didn't
merging.
have platonic. We didn't. Is it called platonic
Yeah, yeah,
friendships? Yeah,
yeah.
we didn't have like I had my own set of friends. She had her own set of friends.
And that was a part of our lives that we lived separately.
Yes.
And we were kind of like, this is a
Yes.
little, maybe we should kind of like try to make something more joint out of this, but it felt hard to do.
Yeah, a couple years, 4 years looking back at it, absolutely. We're like, yeah, but it was rougher than you would imagine because my set of friends had a certain value system, her set of friends had a certain value system, and obviously that influences both of us. We start, and then come on, let's be honest. It says birds of a feather flock together. Tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. We usually judge people essentially by friendships, and so you can imagine too having two completely different friends. It's like, oh, you hang out with this person, they are so dramatic. Or it's like, you hang out with this person, they are so unaware of life and emotions. And so that created a huge strain on our relationship for sure.
And then from my perspective, because we were young,
yes,
I was like, we're young. We need to be free. We need to be this. We need to be that. And he's like, what are you talking about? So we also had like different visions.
Yes.
For what our marriage would look like. Mm-hmm. So that's what I think started to surface.
Yeah.
Within those 2-3 years.
And to your point about the vision part, because then it goes back to, but isn't that addressing premarital about vision? Again, a lot of that stuff before you get married is good stuff, theory. But it's lofty. It's so lofty. Like, yes, I want to have 4 kids. I want to be in a mansion, and I want to have a dog, and I want to have this going on and that going on and this going on. I want us to be it's like that stuff is so good, and we still believe that stuff. But what happens is that when life starts to hit, it's like, what about that 4-member family again? And, you start to question a lot of stuff, and you realize that the vision that you curated in the beginning, while it was good, it wasn't specific, right? Mm-hmm. And when it's not specific, then when year 1 of marriage comes, there are going to be a lot of nuances. Like, okay, we have 2 different friends. Was that in the vision? We never really discussed that. Or, hey, like spending habits, I noticed that you spend this way as opposed to, that really just, so there are a lot of nuances that I believe that you may not necessarily get in premarital or preparing to marriage. But that's why you have people like us, and I'm sure other people as well, who are willing to be candid and like, hey, there's certain things that you just want to be cognizant of. So let's just jump into it, and then we'll, kind of close out here.
So when we're jumping in, we're giving some points on what we think you can use or do to prepare for, like, that first year of marriage or whenever your marriage gets ghetto.
Yeah.
This is like, or if it doesn't, like, this is just information that we want to share.
It's just stuff that if we were to look back at year 1 and year 2 of our marriage, we would say this to our younger selves.
Yep.
So the first one is, this is a point here. It says going in with flexible expectations, right? So I'm kind of reading our notes here, but going in with flexible expectations, right?
Yeah.
I think that point is so important, because now again, it just really depends on your community. A lot of more seasoned people would say, hey, you want to have gender roles, right? You want to have clearly defined roles, like, hey, Lou always she's gonna be the one who cooks, and I'm gonna be the one who takes out the trash, and I'm gonna do all the driving, and whatever it is. What we have discovered is that being flexible in our expectations is probably the safest way to go. In fact, we believe in this idea, and our mentor shared this with us, that you kind of want to go into the marriage, or if you're in your first year, you kind of want to view the marriage as, I'm just going to give 100% to it, and I'm not going to expect anything. Yeah. Now, that may push against some of our, women that are like, no way. Like, my man needs to, take me to Outback on the first, or not Outback, but needs to take me to Mastro's on the first date, or my man needs to make me a housewife on the first date, or my girl better be cooking, and, she better be cooking, y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I just feel like if you walk in with those kinds of expectations, you're putting uh chains and shackles on a person that may not necessarily be opting into that, right? Like, because when Lou signed up for me, she signed up for me. She did not sign up for my fantasies, right? So she signed up for my character. She signed up for the companionship, but she did not sign up for my fantasy of her, waking up every morning, making me breakfast. Or I did not sign up for her to, for me to, always drive 24/7, 7 days, whatever, just thinking of, random things. So walking into it with like flexible expectations, for me, I feel like it's so important, because if your expectations are let down, especially in the beginning, especially the first 2 years, man, it sets a lens and a negative perception about your spouse or your spouse to be that you do not want to be in. So
Yeah,
I would say
which
that.
I think goes really good into another point that we have, which is like, don't take yourself too seriously.
Yes.
Going into it, we were like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then you quickly realize, like, okay, well, I can't do all of that, Or sometimes, like, we don't really have traditional gender roles in our house,
Yeah.
so it could be like, if I took myself really seriously, I can judge myself, which I did in the beginning of our marriage. I would really like judge myself or compare myself to other wives that I
Yeah.
would see, and that would just simply just cause me not to
Burnout.
show up well.
Yeah.
So really, I think like the basis of marriage is friendship.
Yep.
So really, just going into it like not taking yourself too seriously, not holding the other person to the fire too much, because what I realize also is that the Bible says outdo one another in showing love.
Yep.
And we really hold that really dear to our hearts, because like Sam said, like if he's giving 100, not expecting anything, and I'm giving 100, not expecting anything. Remember, marriage is goes very hard against selfishness. If you are a selfish person, I don't know about you, don't get married.
It's gonna be hard.
It's gonna be hard to get married.
It's gonna be hard.
It's really gonna be
It's
hard.
not gonna be hard to get married. It's gonna be hard being married.
Yeah,
You're gonna be
that's
miserable.
true.
Like
That's true.
you're gonna be miserable.
Yeah, so you have to really learn to be selfless in your marriage. So when I put him 100% in his interests, he doesn't have to feel like he has to worry for himself.
Right.
Or I have to, like, you go into this self-protection, like, oh, she's not going to worry about me, so now I got to fend for myself.
Right.
But when he's giving 100
Yes.
to me, I can focus on giving 100 to him.
Correct.
So it's like, but also not taking ourselves seriously in the sense of when I fail, it's okay. I didn't hit the mark here. But always just finding time to just like, laugh with one another.
Yeah, I think that was another advice that our mentors, if you notice, I'm using our mentors, because they played a significant role into us being married or getting married and still being
Staying married, yeah.
Staying married. Thank you. That's the right thing. And that kind of goes into the point of build your community. That is so important.
But tell your story about your journey with mentorship a little bit in the marriage.
Yes. Okay, cool. I was going somewhere. You had my thought. That's the thing about doing this podcast with another person. You know what I mean? But no, I'm kidding. I gotta be flexible. Do we do that anymore?
Go ahead.
All right. So yeah, in the beginning of I think it's a little different though. So in our community, serving a lot, still serve a lot, but serving and we were getting married. So there was a lot. There was a chip on my shoulder. Say it that way. There was a feeling or responsibility of not letting people in the community down in terms of like showing my weakness or being vulnerable to people. Then there was the dynamic of being a super husband, wanting to be the husband, the perfect godly husband, the one that doesn't make mistakes, the flawless one, the impeccable one, right? Like that was the chip on my shoulder. And when we enter year 2 of our marriage and we really was in a pothole, we were really in a bind, I was like, okay, time to roll up sleeves. I'm about to solve this. This is what I was born for. This is what those 7 books were all about. This is what those YouTube videos were about. It's time for me to go in. And as I was going in, she was actually going out, right? Like she was like, I don't know. I ain't signed up for all of this. This is weird. You're weird. You need to get yourself together. And I was
Or
just
I'm
like,
out.
well, yeah. And so that really put me in a space where it was like, okay, I don't have the answers. And that was kind of demoralizing, especially for a guy. Oof, yeah, it was demoralizing. Like, man, I'm a godly man. I know how to pray. I know how to do all these things. I know the word. But yet, I am not, this is not working. And I just want to set someone free, especially if you're struggling year one or year two of your marriage. First of all, there are a lot of people that are struggling. Let's just be for real. Like, there are a lot of people who are struggling. And it makes me even ask the question, should we even pose it as struggling? It's not really
Yeah.
struggling. It's just a phase.
It's growing pains.
It's growing pains. And so we had a lot of growing pains in the beginning. And if it was not for a mentor, so she was recommending, like, hey, we need a referee here. We need somebody to come in who would look at it objectively. We need a healthy set of eyes. And I said, how dare you? I'm the man of God. You don't need anybody, right? And that was through naivety and my immaturity. And then when we got to a really stopping point where it was like, look, man, like, if we don't get eyes on this thing, we cannot proceed forward. And I was like, all right, cool, no worries. I would rather, this is what I told myself, I would rather take the sting and shame, opening myself up to others, mentors, than I would, just having a failed marriage. And so I was just like, hey, okay, cool. And that was a game changer for us. It changed the game completely. I was like, man, I wish I would have done this or taken it more seriously, because we were always surrounded by resources of mentors, but we never tapped into, or I never tapped into it in a vulnerable place. So when we're talking about building your community, we're talking about three levels, really. We're talking about building your mentor community where you are where you both agree on individuals or a set or a couple. You both agree on them, and you need to spend the time to talk about it, because you don't want to just choose a couple just for the sake of choosing. Like, you want to see the fruit of their relationship, you want to see the fruit of their marriage, and you both want to say to yourself, that's the vision that I see for us. That's the vision I see for us. Okay, let's submit to that. And so that is the first level of community that we ought to build. And then the second level is friendships. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so like we talked about a little bit earlier, we kind of waited, or not intentionally, we unintentionally waited to integrate our friendships. But we realized that as a couple that likes to do things together, it was taking away a part of our relationship, of our intimacy, not being able to experience friendship together. So that was a pain point for me, and I was like, we need some friends.
Yeah.
So we were intentional, as awkward as it might be.
No, it's not
we
awkward.
would. I remember when we hit that hard spot in our marriage, we would gather people a lot, gather couples, gathered. I would gather sometimes just women who were married, because I was feeling lonely in marriage. I was feeling like there was no other, like I didn't have people who understood what I was going through. So I had to seek it out. I didn't expect it to come to me. So I would say that that's something that's really important.
Yeah, and to set context for the loneliness, a lot of our friends at that time, they weren't really married yet. And so that was a thing where it was like, well, I have mentors, cool, but I just need some people to let my hair down and just really we didn't really have that, right? So if I'm like, hey, man, like, oh, Lou done did this today, they're like, wow, is that how marriage is? Now I'm being a mentor.
Exactly.
Like, nah, man.
Yeah, you're giving advice now. It's like, nah, bro, I'm trying to vent.
Yeah, we had to be very intentional, and somebody may be asking themselves, so what exactly did you do? We literally created a list, and we prayed about it. And in fact, we're going to get to that last point. We had a set of core values that kind of governed the kind of friends that we wanted. But yeah, we created a list that we both agreed on, that we both would like. Obviously there were some spiritual values, but then there was also just some natural values. Like, do we like these people? Like, are they cool people? And so when we both agreed on that, that helped. And then the third layer of community that we built And I really want to highlight this word build because it requires intentionality. It will not come by happenstance.
Doesn't it, the Bible say if someone wants to have friends, she should show himself friendly?
That's exactly what it says. If you want friends, show yourself to be friendly. Yeah. And so that's what we had to do. We knew that mentors are not going to come to us. We had to run to them. And then we also knew that we had to be super intentional about who we're bringing in. And then the third layer is people who we were and currently are discipling. Discipling sounds really, but that's what it is: discipling and mentoring and pouring into. And so we had that layer as well, which was super helpful because it helps us to be accountable, right? Like it helps us to practice what we preach, right? Because it's like there's no way. And marriage would it would do that to you. I would say if you're struggling, like it sounds like, oh, find people you can pour into because nothing sticks more than you teaching it to others. Nothing sticks more than you teaching it to others.
That's the number one study tip, you know.
Yeah, no, I tell my students that all the time. Like the best way you're gonna learn is through peer-to-peer group studies. Like it's the best way you're going to learn. You're like, oh, but I don't have it all together. You will get it all together as you do teach. And I know that sounds reckless, but it's not reckless at all because what you're doing is it's putting you in a state of intentionality where you're saying to yourself, I don't want to give somebody information that I myself have not practiced. That's number one. Or when you're giving out information, you'll quickly realize that it's not connecting with people because you yourself have not practiced it. Yeah. So I would definitely say get some people where you can pour into. And the 3 layers, they must be balanced because don't have top heavy mentees, but you don't have any mentors, right? Like that's unhealthy. So all 3 of those things were very critical.
I want to say a point on
that. Yeah, sure. No, go ahead.
I want to say a point on the mentee part because just a story about us. Yeah. So we really were started really pouring into couples that were coming up behind us like around year 3 of our marriage as we were getting out of that tough season. Yeah. And Sam had
one really because I was a young adult pastor. So.
Yeah, and Sam had the opportunity to marry a couple, and I remember when he took the opportunity, he was like, "I need you to know that if I say yes to this, you need to be serious. Like, we need to be good. Are we good?" Like, throughout the process of us doing premarital counseling with that couple, he was like, "Are we good? Like, we're not about to stand up there, or not me, but I'm not about to stand up there and marry this couple, and I don't know, like, we need to be good. Make sure, like, we have to be good." And I appreciate that intensity. But the testimony, y'all, that I want to share is that Sam had the opportunity to marry a couple this year, this is now going into year 6 of our marriage. He ain't asked me not one time, "Are we good?"
Yeah, it was real.
Not one time.
Brought it up. I was like, wow, God is faithful.
I was like, look at progress.
Answer prayers. Man, I'm just letting you know, I'm starting a deliverance ministry.
Oh my gosh, go to the last point.
Yeah, the last point. Let me not take too much time, but I mentioned this before, but core values is everything. Yeah. Here's the thing, that we all have our personal core values, whether you have set them or not, right? Whether you have took the time out to write out your core values or not, you have core values. You have guiding principles that you are dead set on, right? Like you may not necessarily like have it written down, but like for example, like you're dead set on, I cannot be late. Right? Or you're dead set on, I must honor people, or I must be kind. Like you have your I must, right? As it relates to how you show up in the world. Now, here's the thing. It's great from an individual standpoint, but there needs to be a collective I must, or that I must need to turn to we must, right? Like there needs to be that shift from I must to we must.
It's right? Like give it up, hang it up.
Yeah.
Flat screen.
Give it up, hang it up, flat screen? What are you talking about?
You preach your message.
All right.
This message is in him. Yeah, he's been preaching it for the last 2 months, y'all.
It's a real word. It's a strong word. But that wasn't whatever. It was a concept, but whatever.
Yes.
But there needs to be though, because what we have discovered in year 1 is we were 2 very headstrong individuals with our own core values.
Yes.
Like we had our own separate core values. A perfect example is Lou is like, no matter how you feel, you must no matter how you feel, support looks like staying from start to finish at an event. That was her core value. As silly as it sounds, this is just
That
an
doesn't
example.
sound silly.
You must, from start to finish, stay at the event. That's the only way support looks like. My core value is, if you even see me there, then glory to God. Glory to God. And it's not, that sounds very crazy, but the point is, my value of support is, hey, I'm here for you. I may even support you behind closed doors. I may give you funds for that event, but I may not be there the entire time. For her, it's like, now I got to be there the entire time. And so we had two distinct core values, which honestly, at the root of it, is supporting people, right? At the surface of it, is supporting people. So you would think that it would gel well. But in reality, what was really happening in reality is that we would get to the event, and she's like, no, I got to stay to the end. And I'm like, well, no, we've been here for like 2-3 hours. We're good. Like they know that we cherish them. They know that we support them, and we're good. And that really created a lot of tension, because it then turned into, well, you're introverted. You don't really like going out. I was like, nah, it's Lando's. But the point that I'm trying to make is, we can have our individual core values, but there must be a shift from I must to we must, right? Mm-hmm. Like, our core values need to align in that way. So I encourage you. And we developed our core values in the thick of our storm. Thank you. That's a good PC. Yeah, in the thick of our storm, that's when we developed core values. We didn't do it before the storm. We did it during the storm, because they're like, tested. Down. We need to figure this out. They're tried. They're not like make believe. They're not like, oh, no, they're not fluffy. They're the real. In the midst of me saying, I don't like you right now, I'm going to choose one of our core values is connection
over disconnection.
And
I will say, like, one of the things that kind of governs the spirit of our core values, that we were different on this point. And kind of sometimes I'll be like, we need to talk about that again. But we got rid of, like, we agree to disagree. Sam was like, nah, we don't do that in this house.
We don't do that in this house.
I feel like you looked up the Bible study. Like, you were like, is this biblical?
Yeah,
like, he came out with Bible scriptures.
She was doing that for at least, at that time, it would have been 4 years. Courtship, engagement, first, second. And I was like, you know what? I don't like that. We can do that on a whole different another episode. But
but that's the spirit that really governs our core values.
See how she cut me off?
Sorry, go ahead.
Hey guys, we appreciate you spending the time with us. If you actually made it to the end, you are the real one. Just go ahead and put real in the chat so we know that you are been riding with us. And even if you aren't, it's okay. But please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Hey, if you have a topic that you want us to talk about, please let us know. Other than that, we love you. The Akins are out.
Bye.